It's reported that Baker Mayfield at this point is going to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers from week 1 onward until he either gets injured, is playing below expectations, or the Carolina Panthers just feel like they want to see Sam Darnold back in the starting lineup. But for right now and for the foreseeable future, it's going to be Baker Mayfield's team in Carolina, which, given everything that's happened, given the fact that they traded for him, given the fact that, Baker Mayfield technically does have the better resume. Baker Mayfield has the distinction of being able to say that he led the Cleveland Browns, historically one of the worst teams in the NFL over the last handful of decades. He led them to an 11-5 record and a playoff win. Whereas if you talk about what Sam Darnold has done in his short career with both the Jets and the Carolina Panthers, the best year that Sam Darnold can say he had is a year in which he started 13 games for the Jets and went 7-6 in those starts. And that was a year in which the New York Jets went 7-9. So everything that's happened, everything has led up to this, and everything makes sense saying that Baker Mayfield should be the starting quarterback of this team. But what does it mean in terms of affecting their chances of winning? Here's the weird thing about the Carolina Panthers. This year is going to be a year in which their cap it's fine. Like, there's no big cap hits this year. They're paying Sam Darnold $18.8 million a year for the 2022 season. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this year. You have to assume that they either, if they figure out halfway through the year that Baker Mayfield is going to start for the rest of the year, you have to think that they're going to try to trade Sam Darnold somewhere or maybe cut him. I really don't expect them to cut him because if Baker does go down, they do need to have a backup. And Matt Corral, Phillip Walker, and those are just not two guys that you would want starting multiple games for a franchise that hopes to be making the playoffs this year. This year is fine, right? And what I'm going to talk about now is something that I've talked about before in a video. The way that the Carolina Panthers have their contracts set up right now, and this has changed from where it was a while ago, but it still is just so confusing. Right now, the Carolina Panthers have 86 players signed to their roster with a total cap allocation of 109.5. Oh my gosh, 109.5. Wow, look at that. You can read. $195 million in total cap allocations signed between 86 players. And this graphic is already on the screen, so you didn't have to wait to understand what I was saying as I was struggling through saying that. But that number jumps up $60 million almost, even though there's 36 less players signed to the roster. Now, how does that happen? That happens when you increase Christian McCaffrey's salary by $11 million next year. That happens when you increase Robbie Anderson's salary $11 million next year. That happens when you sign DJ Moore to a contract extension. That increases his cap allocation $19 million next year. Taylor Moton is going to be getting paid $17 million more next year. Austin Corbett is going to be paid $7 million more next year. Brian Burns is going to be paid $12 million more next year. Like, you go through this roster, Shaq Thompson is going to be paid $11 million more next year. Dante Jackson, $8 million more next year. It's so strange how this roster was constructed from a contract standpoint. It sucks for Carolina because if they don't win this year, free agents, I don't think, have Carolina dubbed as one of their main places that they would love to go, although I do think Carolina has had some luck in the past in getting some decent free agents to come to their roster. I think the only way that this roster improves over the next year, though, is through the draft. And if this team wants to compete, they're not going to have a high draft pick to address some of the issues that they're going to have on the offensive line. They still don't have a tight end, which a first-round tight end never ends up working out anyway, so I'm not going to say that they should spend a first-round pick on a tight end that's going to get overhyped in the draft process anyway. The linebacking core is good, but you would love one more guy next to Corey Littleton and Shaq Thompson. The secondary is really good. The secondary is incredible. Dante Jackson, J.C. Horn, Xavier Woods, C.J. Henderson, Jeremy Chin, Justin Burris. Everyone that's on this roster and the secondary is really good. And they have a good special teams as well. So I think this has the recipe to be a really good team. This really does. Even if Sam Darnold was the starting quarterback, I think this team has the recipe to be a good team. A lot of this is going to rely on health. And that seems like an idiotic thing to say because that's the same exact thing that you could say about every single team. But I think what's different about this team is Baker Mayfield came off a season-ending, not really season-ending injury, but an injury that would have ended his season if he decided to go that route last year. Christian McCaffrey had another injury last year. You're dealing with wide receivers who, could get injured. You're dealing with a team who could get injured, and that's the exact same thing you could say about every single team. But for the Carolina Panthers, it seems like they're really one injury away on their main core of star players, where if Christian McCaffrey goes down, it's like, well, there's the season. If DJ Moore goes down, there's the season. If someone major on the defense goes down, like a Shaq Thompson, like a Corey Littleton, like a Dante Jackson, like a J.C. Horn, it could spell a long 17-game stretch for this roster. But what I will say is this team should be a wild card team. And I have said it in previous videos that I've been making recently. You don't want to be a wild card team. But in the case of the Carolina Panthers, they're playing in a division with Tom Brady. And unless you can tell me confidently that you're going to beat Tom Brady twice and you're going to beat the rest of your division and you're going to sweep your division, I don't believe you're going to be the number one team in your division. They do have a softer other half of their division with the Carolina Panthers going against Atlanta and New Orleans twice a year. I don't think New Orleans is going to be much of anything. I don't think Atlanta is going to be much of anything. So they should at least get 3 wins between those two teams. And then, hey, if they split the season series with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then they maybe have some sort of shot at winning the division. But it also is going to rely on the fact that not only do they have to beat the division, they got to beat every other team that they play. And when you look at the Carolina Panthers the roster, when you look at the schedule, you look at a schedule that actually is pretty favorable early to start out for this team. They're hosting the Cleveland Browns, who will not be with Deshaun Watson. They're going to go to the New York Giants. They're going to host the Saints, host the Cardinals, host the 49ers. Cardinals and 49ers, and even the Saints to an extent, tough teams, tough games to start the season out, but at least they're at home. And they get to start the season hopefully strong. They would love to start 3-2. They would love to start 4-1. They would love to start 5-0, but they also started 3-0 last year and then lost 8 straight games afterwards or something like that. Like, they were such a front runner team at the beginning of the year last year. I don't think they would really want to start 5-0 this year. But this schedule after that start does get pretty rough. You go to LA, host Tampa Bay, go to Cincinnati, go to Baltimore, host Denver, go to Seattle, host Pittsburgh, go to Tampa Bay, go to New Orleans. You could see a season in which this team is 9-8, 8-9, 7-10, even 10-7. It's gonna heavily rely on the health of this team. And again, that's not something that is just breaking news. That's just something that is the truth. And for the Carolina Panthers going through this year, it's going to heavily rely on whether or not Baker Mayfield is ready to leave Cleveland behind him. Because to me, Baker Mayfield seems like the kind of guy who is going to just be bringing up this Cleveland thing. And now with the Deshaun Watson suspension being handed out that it's going to be an 11-game suspension, I really get the feeling that Baker Mayfield, through the first 11 weeks of the season, is going to be saying things, and he's going to be playing in a certain way, and he's going to be in the media. And I could be completely wrong about this. I'm willing to say I could be completely wrong about this, and if I am completely wrong about this, I'll admit that I will be completely wrong about it. But I just get the feeling that Baker Mayfield's going to be saying things like, oh yeah, the place I was at, we wouldn't be doing things like this. Or the place I was at, they're really struggling right now. Their quarterback can't even play, and they traded me. I get the feeling that things like that are going to happen throughout the year. I hope I'm wrong, because I think Baker Mayfield just needs to leave Cleveland behind him. He got dealt a really raw deal in Cleveland, and everybody should be able to say that. If you don't think that Baker Mayfield got dealt a raw hand in Cleveland, then you just aren't paying attention. Because what happened to Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, he brought that team back from the depths of NFL hell. And they traded him away as soon as it got difficult. And now they have a quarterback who they can't even play until week 12, week 13, depending on when their bye week is. I'm not sure. But now they have a guy they can't even play for over half of the season. And Baker Mayfield should hopefully be leading this Carolina Panthers team to the playoffs. As long as he leaves Cleveland behind him and he starts anew with Carolina, he should be able to do just that and lead the Carolina Panthers to the playoffs this year.